This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good night, Bill Murray. How are you doing on this wonderful, beautiful night?
It happens to also be my birthday, and so I'm celebrating my birthday. It's my 66th birthday. I'm an old guy. And it's a beautiful day in Southern California, bright and sunny, and flowers are all in bloom because we had a couple of weeks worth of rain, and so now everything is growing, like crazy. So, beautiful day.
Well, happy birthday, Bill. It's a great pleasure to have you here on your birthday. I'm glad that you decided to invest 12 minutes of your birthday with me. I'm honored. Thank you.
Engel, it's my privilege.
Well, do tell us, which of your talents is responsible for us connecting at this specific time in history?
Well, somebody who was in one of the groups that I founded was also connected to you and suggested that you might enjoy interviewing a person of my type. I'm the founder of a couple of organizations. One of them is Los Angeles Community Policing, but that's not the one I really want to talk about. The other is the National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse. And this organization, which we also refer to as NAASCA, because of the letters of the name, NAASCA, at NAASCA.org, by the way, is a giant organization now. I've been doing this kind of work for quite a number of years. I was myself a survivor of child abuse from sexual abuse in childhood, and I've been in recovery a long time, 35 years. And over the last numerous years, many years, I've launched this nonprofit organization that's quite unique, and it gathers together people from every walk of life who have suffered every kind of child abuse, and it puts them together for two purposes: one, to educate the public, and two, to support each other. So, Engel, that's pretty much the gist of what I do, and I can talk about any aspect of it, but I work at this 7 days a week, all day long, and I have done this for years.
It sounds like something like AA.
Well, the traditions of AA steered me towards how this organization was established, not the steps. And I am a member of AA. I know the AA program very well. But what I fell in love with Alcoholics Anonymous was the traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I hated the steps. Of course, I had to do them, but I loved the traditions, and it made AA, as you probably know, or as many people will know, a very special kind of organization. When I've modeled NAASCA after those set of traditions, which I call the spiritual principles that guide how the organization has been established, and in fact, there's a link on our page called the 12 Traditions, which talks about how the 12 traditions of AA have been sort of translated into supporting the NAASCA effort and issues. And so yes, it is somewhat in that sense, but not in the sense of recovery, Engel, because we appreciate any kind of recovery, and we support all kinds of recovery, and we talk about them all too, whether that's ministry or therapy or psychology or life coaches or writing skills, hypnosis, EMDR. There's many, many, many things that you can do. And our main goal is to bring people in and help them be aware that there are all these tools. The average sexual abuse survivor from childhood is in their early 40s before they even realize what's wrong with them, and they start to look for help. And the unfortunate thing is probably close to, we guess, around 90% of the approximately 50 million American adults only, just Americans, and this is a worldwide pandemic, but approximately 50 million, 90% of them never get recovery. 10% of us do. And so we know that there's a huge challenge, and really, my way of thinking, and many of our organization's members, we call it the NAASCA family, thinking is that we have a responsibility to pass on what was given to us and educate the public, as they say, and offer hope and healing paths to other survivors of various types of child abuse.
Now, it seems as though, to me, you have a high level of determination. When you set your path out, it seems as though you follow after. Who did you learn that from?
I don't know if I was born with it or what. I did come from a family of volunteers of different types, not of this type. And I'm probably the most engaged of any of our family. But my mother, father, and sister and I were all encouraged to get involved with different kinds of organizations that involve volunteerism. And of course, I was raised as a Catholic, so an awful lot of them originally were Catholic. But with my father, it was also the business community. He was a member of things like the Exchange Club and so forth, business things that were outside Catholicism. And my mother was a librarian by trade, and even when she retired, she went right on being a volunteer in the library system, bringing books to people that couldn't get out and all kinds of things. So perhaps the impetus to be a volunteer came from the kind of upbringing I brought, but I don't know where the energy comes from, except that when you've been down as far as I have been and been sexually assaulted hundreds and hundreds of times as a youngster, starting at age 11, and have survived it all, and my survival started at age 30, and I'm now 65, now today 66. You do have a lot to be grateful for, and I feel a responsibility to pass it on. So this is really simply the mission of my life, the ministry of my life, or whatever word you'd like to put on it. And a lot of people are involved in, thousands and thousands have, accepted the challenge to step up to the plate and also be NASCA family members. And every one of us, by the way, Engel, are volunteers, including me. None of us are paid. We don't charge anything for anything we do. And yet we have about 30 programs that are all free to the public that anybody can take advantage of. And some of them are extremely unique. It's gratifying that this organization, which is now more than a decade old, a specific organization, probably will outlive me, I hope, which is the idea, and that there's something for me to pass on.
So where's the best place for someone to connect with you?
NASCA.org, NAASCA.org, S is in Sam, NAASCA.org. It stands for National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse. Although it's international now. I'd say the majority of people that we help are North Americans, but we are all over the world now because we do everything in English. And as you know, Engel, the English language is one of the best spoken languages in the world. So this being a pandemic that affects every part of the world, it's a global problem. We have been able to reach an awful lot of people in an international audience. So we're really now international.
That's wonderful. Well done. I'm glad you've stepped up to the plate to create from what was pain something that brings resolution for other individuals. So thank you for doing that. Let's switch gears for a moment now. Let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Please, Bill, tell me, what is your earliest childhood memory?
Probably the layout of an apartment that we lived in. I was born in Manhattan, in the Lower East Side, on 14th Street, in Stuyvesant Town, and that's about as much as you can, a bunch of New Yorker as you can be. So this was at the time, not too long after World War II. My parents were living in this. It was a housing unit then for returning veterans and their young families. And my father was out of the Army, the Army Air Force, which he had served for a number of years in Europe. And his veteran status got us this apartment. So I remember the layout of the apartment. And then I was an adopted child, which I was always told. And while I don't remember how I was told, because it's just always been a fact, I do remember that at a certain point we moved to another slightly larger apartment, because a year and a half later they got my sister and they adopted her from another family, I guess. So we're not all genetically related. We are family. My mom, dad, myself, and my sister. And I do recall that. Now all of them are gone now, so I'm pretty much, alone, but I have a giant expanded family of cousins and aunts and uncles, about 60 first cousins through my father's side. So a lot of support.
Why do you think this memory is so clear, where you have mentally stored that location and the layout of the apartment?
Well, it's not just the apartment. I shouldn't just say it's the apartment. I remember, for example, going over to the large windows and being able to kind of lean down and see we were on the 10th floor of a 12-story building. And I was fascinated, I guess, by the fact that I could look down at the playground down below. And, of course, in miniature, see people running around and doing all their activities. I remember that as part of this apartment. Yet I know that we moved from the 2 apartments, the 1-bedroom and then the 2-bedroom. By the time I was in first grade, we were gone. So it had to be a memory from that period of time. And, it was a pleasant place to be. And I remember a number of incidents there, too. But I don't know why. I think kids are impressed by their environment and surroundings from the very beginning.
How do you see it connecting to who you are today?
Well, today I have a mission, like I say, that is it seemed to be a taboo topic for an awful lot of people to talk about childhood, especially sexual abuse. And I actually waited until my father, my mother, and my sister were all passed away before I went as public as I did 10 years ago. And so it spurred me. I knew I was talking about it in private and in recovery groups and so forth, but when I went public, I went really, really public, Engel. and NASCA is the result.
How does it make you feel, though, to see what you've accomplished by making that decision?
It's hard to measure, to be honest. I just know that I have a sense of purpose and definitely something that I can offer, both in the public safety world, which I mentioned at the beginning of the show that I've done for 25 years too, and in the world of child abuse especially, because it is a issue that I'm drawn to. I wasn't drawn to it, I was thrown into it. But now in recovery, I'm drawn to sharing what I know with the community at large and creating. We have some, expressions of that are sort of like mottos or whatever, and one of them is that together we can do what we can't do alone. And that would be a succinct way of saying it. And I'm privileged to have been the founder and the CEO of this organization and its main spokesperson. And I know that I have a feeling that it will outlive me, which is what I want.
Wonderful. If we fast forward to when you were 12 years old on this time machine, what was your favorite song then?
My favorite song were the Beatles. My group was the Beatles. So I liked Rubber Soul, and I liked the White Album eventually, and so forth. So all those Beatles songs, I think I identified "I Want to Hold Your Hand" as one of the earlier ones. "She Was Just 17" is another one, and so forth. The really, really early ones when they came over, and that would be around 11 or 12 years old for me. It was also the time I started to be abused, interestingly enough, at 11 years old. And it went on through the middle of high school for me. So a number of years by many people, all of them men, by the way. Very embarrassing for me originally in my recovery to even admit that. A lot of them were priests and brothers, but not all. Some were laymen. And it involved a kidnapping for a couple of weeks. A lot of horror. Being a victim of pornography for 3 of those years, the first 3 years, and not realizing what was happening to me, and waking up to the reality of having been so taken advantage of, and the embarrassment, frankly, to even get started on a recovery journey until I was about 30. And by that time, I had done drugs and alcohol so heavily that I did enter 12-step programs to get some sobriety, and I was able to achieve it after a few trials and errors, but I did. And I applied the same program to my own child abuse issues, and I'm still doing that today.
All right, Bill. Well, we've arrived at our destination. But before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. So it's yes or no. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready, Bill?
Ready.
Bill, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
I'm looking for that person. I have a variety of people who each do a portion of what I do, but nobody who's capable of doing all of what I do.
Are you married?
I am married. I have a wonderful second wife now. We've been together about 10 years. She has 3 children, and I have 1. She's a Brazilian gal, and I just love her to death. Her first language is Portuguese. We both speak broken Spanish and broken English. And so in our home, we speak Portuguese Spanglish, and the only one that understands everything, Engel, is the dog. It's exciting. Christina is a wonderful gal, and I'm so happy, graced to have her in my life.
Do you believe in God?
Yes, I do believe in God, but it's not the God that I grew up with. It's not a religious type God. It certainly isn't a Catholic God, or not entirely Catholic. Although there are a lot of parts to my belief in a God that are Catholic, but also Christian and also Muslim and also Buddhist and so forth. I've borrowed things from various religious beliefs and backgrounds. I just have what I call a higher power, which we call it in the 12-step programs. It is a God, and I'm not afraid to say God. But this God doesn't have an attachment to a specific religion. I think of it as being more of a person. I'm a person with a spiritual life and program than a person with a religious life.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
Oh, yeah. I have quite a few friends, and most of them are either from the community I live in. I've been in this same neighborhood, general neighborhood, for 20-plus years, 23 or something years, and I'm really well known in law enforcement circles. I'm known in government circles. I'm known in activist circles because of all the work I've done with the community policing stuff since way back when. And now, in addition to that, over the last 10 years, I've collected a whole lot of friends. In fact, today, Engel, my birthday is one of the busiest days of my life, notwithstanding this interview. I must have answered, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of text messages and IMs, social media messages, and so forth, because I did want to acknowledge everybody that contacted me and at least thank them for saying happy birthday, Bill. So I've done this hundreds of times already today, and no doubt there'll be more before the night's over.
Tell me about TV. Do you look at TV for more than 3 hours a day?
I tend to watch a lot of news and a lot of detective shows. And I do this because I need to stay current, I feel, to be accurate as a spokesperson for an organization, 2 organizations like these. I have to be knowledgeable. And so I watch the news for that. Entertainment-wise, both Christina and I love old movies. We love some new television shows, and we certainly love the detective stories that are kind of commonly popular. And it's one of the things that Christina understands very well. Of course, she has a challenge of learning new vocabulary all the time, which I'm happy to help her with. But the detective shows are told in a language that she does seem to understand quite well. So they're entertaining for us.
What about screen time, the phone and the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
It's not so much the phone as the computer for me, but I run these 2 large websites. So there's actually chunks of the day that I put aside to address them. First thing in the morning, I wake up like a fireman. Christina doesn't. She wakes up kind of grumpy. But I wake up like a fireman. As soon as my feet hit the floor, I have a 30-second commute to get the computer on, and the TV, frankly, catch up on the news while I'm booting the computer, and I start working on the websites. That work would last for 2 to 3 hours at least.
Wow.
And during that time, usually Christina wakes. Then we have some time together and a meal, and at some point in the afternoon, I try to take a nap. Because I do the shows that we do. We do shows 6 nights a week, 90-minute shows. We've done over, close to 2,700 episodes of shows that become podcasts, 90-minute podcasts, all linked on our website. And I'm the producer of those shows, so I have to arrange all the guests, write up all the descriptions, schedule everybody. Plus, I run all the NASCA stuff. So what happens is I take a nap, I get up in the middle of the afternoon, maybe 2:30 or 3 o'clock. I work another couple hours before the show starts, for me at 5 o'clock here on the Pacific Coast for 90 minutes. And often that's the last thing I do. In other words, there are blocks of times when I'm sitting at the computer, other times I'm kind of half paying attention, and then still other times that are actually built in when I take my nap, I don't take my phone with me, and I don't take the computer with me. I nap, and I find this is an effective way to live my life.
What about reading? How often do you read?
Most of it's done online, but I am sent books by people that write books. A lot of our members write books, and of course I engage with those. I'm basically, my background is I'm a creative person. I was in the film and TV industry for many years, but I also have an education in journalism, which I really didn't use in my career, but I am using now, because the information that we put out, I'm the main person that puts it out, and even if it's sent to me by somebody else, I will look over it, I'll make edits and so forth, and I'll make sure that it adheres to the mission and so forth, everything appropriate. So not bad for a guy who's still a hunt and peck typer, but does know journalism quite well, and it's expressed in that way. The web building, which I do, manifests many of the talents that I've had with film, television, editing, acting, even sometimes do video work, and writing skills, and on and on and on. So a lot of things come together for the NASCA experience. I'm not doing just one thing. I'm doing everything, all things.
If you had to share with us, Bill, your own unique real statement, a statement that represents who you are, Bill Murray, what would you say that is?
Well, I think there are a couple of terms that I know are important to me. One of them is integrity. I follow through when I say I'm going to, and if I can't, I say I can't. But I don't push people either. I make myself as available as I can for all the things that I'm involved in, and then it's up to the person, the other side of the equation. If they want to engage with me, I'm more than happy to. I answer every phone call, I answer every email, and I get a lot of them. I counsel people, I do all kinds of writing and so forth. But I don't do this as a career or as a job. I've never been paid a penny in all these years for any of the work that I've done. We're all volunteers, including me, and we're self-supporting through our own contributions. We don't believe in going after grants. And I'd say, again, the following of the 12 traditions would be a set of rules that I live my life by, and of course I run the organization by, and they are the 12 traditions, not the steps of a 12-step program. So I think I'm doing the best I can, but I'm also letting go. I know I'm imperfect, and it's okay for me to make mistakes, but there's a sincerity. I'd say it wraps up in the word integrity that I hope that I display to people, and an ability to put myself out there to be coming from a place of love and service.
Well, Bill, my friend, this has been a great pleasure. Again, happy birthday to you for passing by. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Well, I'm just really happy, Engel, to have the opportunity to do outreach. I'm happy to do this anytime for anybody, but I'm really appreciative of you and the Caribbean there and the work that you're doing. And I just want to say thank you to you and your listeners, and I hope they will at least take a look at the NASCA website, the National Association of Adult Survivors of Child Abuse, again, NAASCA.org, and they'll get informed if nothing else, and if they have child abuse issues, we're here to help them in any way.
And again, we appreciate that. Bill Murray, thank you for being on what is inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
My privilege. Thank you.
This segment has been brought to you by Amazel Enterprise.